Today, we will hear from white Americans having their wake-up calls as they reflect on the true racist history of America and how they should have listened to Black Americans. Check it out.
The country isn't the way it is because of the president. We have the president we have because this country is the way it is, and I can prove it to you. My granddad fought in the Korean War back when, units were segregated to black units and white units. And when he was home on leave in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, it was him and a few of his friends that were also on leave, and they would always go on leave together because they wanted to feel like they had some sort of safety, which obviously was a fucking pipe dream back then. And while on leave, they decided that they were going to try to have a good night, have some fun, as people do. And they went to a movie theater, a segregated movie theater. And after the movie, they wanted to go get something to eat, so they were going to walk to go get food. And while standing on a street corner, waiting to cross the street, some white cops pulled up on them and said that they were loitering and they couldn't be there. And before giving them the chance to comply, because that's some of y'all's favorite saying is, well, if you just complied, they didn't give them a chance to. And my granddad watched one of his good friends get beaten to death on a street corner. Simply for existing while black. In uniform, by the way. In the uniform that was given to them by the country that they were fighting for that clearly didn't give a fuck about them. This isn't a new thing. It's not an isolated thing for all the people who think that, it's been so long since it's been bad for minorities or since it's been bad for black people. That was pre-civil rights. That was pre-Rodney King. That was pre-Trayvon Martin. That was pre-Tamir Rice. That was pre-Alton Sterling. That was pre-Breonna Taylor. That was pre-Sandra Bland. That was pre-take your fucking pick. And now we're here. It's a domino effect. And now all these white people who finally understand what's going on because a white woman was killed. We've been telling y'all for a lot longer than the last 5, the last 10, the last 20, the last 30, the last 40 years. If we don't matter to this country, eventually neither would you. And here we are. I hate to say I told you so. For my granddad, for all the ancestors past, I hate to say we told you so.
I need to say I'm sorry. I voted for him. I thought he was going to help folks like me. I really did. Now my SNAP's gone, my Medicaid's gone. They cut off my heat and help last week. I don't know how I'm supposed to buy groceries next month to keep the lights on. I ain't got no...
The fact that your situation, your life, has not gotten better.
What do you mean this is un-American? What do you mean ICE is un-American? What do you mean the things that we're seeing right now in this current administration are un-American? This is explicitly American. This is how Americans have operated since the inception of this sick little experiment. And as someone who was raised in white nationalism in the South in the 90s and was fed a completely false and whitewashed history of America, who later on went back to school and began receiving a proper education and educating myself on the true history of this nation and specifically the realities of the atrocities committed against Indigenous Americans and Black people in chattel slavery. I mean, what is America if not for a big fucking colonizing bully? What does it mean to be American? I mean, I understand that when people say that, it's typically the people who believe in the lie that we were fed, who actually believe in a place where people have liberty and justice for all. But I think it's beyond time for white people in America specifically to understand, accept, and take accountability for the fact that Yes, violence is American. Dehumanization is American. The wealthy having and people not having anything, that is American. So what do we go back to? What happens next when we really, really come to terms with what Black and brown people have known forever, which is that America is the bad guy, and we always have been.
I need you to understand that what we're seeing in Minnesota is not 1930s Germany. It is Jim Crow. It is what Black Americans have lived through, what our grandparents lived through. I need for you all to understand that if you don't dismantle even that disassociation from your country and what you see happening in your country now, then you will not be a part of this new republic you all keep talking about online that's bringing us together. We have to be able to name things correctly. If you have to, in order to truly acknowledge what's happening, we have to label things correctly. You cannot diagnose a disease without naming it, right? And if you call cancer that's something different than a brain injury, guess what? The diagnosis is going to be wrong. You're not going to be able to get the treatment you need. You're not going to be able to get as healthy as you're supposed to be, right? Because you misdiagnosed and you're treating it incorrectly. And it's the same thing I keep seeing us doing on here. And I love seeing all the people that are fighting and resisting. I love that for us. 92% it still ain't coming outside because you guys aren't even naming the situation correctly. So we know your diagnosis is not correct. And then when we come outside, you're going to act like we need to follow your lead after we get hurt. Guys, you have to start with the painful truth that this is America, has been America. And as our foreign media has shown, the only reason why this could get this far and get this bad is because of America. If it wasn't enough people here that think that this is a good thing, then it wouldn't be possible. So start with the truth. Start with the truth. Because the more you all call it what it is, the less they can deflect. But as long as you guys are calling them things that are outside, call it what it is. These are slave catching patrols. Okay? These are Jim Crow laws they're trying to institute where they basically have immunity to do whatever to people that look a certain way. That is not in Germany, baby. They came over here to study us. Go read the book Cast. They got the playbook from the US of A. So tell yourself the truth so we can dismantle it together.
You know, one of the things I hear all the time is the people that voted for this dumbass in the White House, that's not what I voted for. I found this letter that I want to read you from somebody on Facebook, and I'll post it as a pinned comment below. I used to wonder how it was possible that Trump could have won in 2016 and this second time in 2024, given how emotionally toxic and depraved he is. I no longer do. I actually think he won for that precise reason. Because he had at least one effed up part to mirror and the effed up parts for millions. If you're a racist, he's your guy. If you're a misogynist, he's your guy. If all you care about is money, he's your guy. If you have an emotionally armored heart, he's your guy. If you like golden showers with Russian sex workers, he's your guy. If you long for a toxic daddy, he's your guy. If he had only 2 of these issues, he would have never won. It was the fact that he had hundreds of them that made him the winner, because millions of humans are toxic. So they could relate to him in one form or another. It's never been about Trump. It's always been about the people who finally have their twisted feelings about others validated. Trump has given those people permission to disparage and hate their fellow human beings. Trump is only symptomatic of a much larger issue of a collective toxicity. If there is a single sentence that characterizes Trump, it is this: he says the things that I'm saying. This may be what is so terrifying. Who knew that so many tens of millions of Americans were thinking unconscionable things about their fellow Americans? Who knew that tens of millions of men felt so emasculated by women and challenged by minorities? Who knew that after years of seeming progress on race and gender, tens of millions of white Americans lived in seething resentment, waiting for a demagogue to arrive who would legitimize their worst selves and channel them into political power? Perhaps we had been living in a fool's paradise. No, we aren't. The people that voted for him, there were a couple that were not very bright, concepts of brains, but they loved this. They loved the misogyny. They loved the sexual abuse of women. They loved the degradation of disabled people. This guy went into teenage locker rooms and saw minors get undressed. He went to Epstein Island and molested little girls. Yep, that's my guy. Because he told me, I'm going to have cheap eggs. I'm going to have no tax on overtime. Isn't it rich that the people that pretend to be Christians, these cosplay Christians, they're Pharisees, that go to church with F Joe Biden on their bumper stickers and Joe in the Hoe, that they say, love thy neighbor as thyself. They didn't care about the officers on January 6th that aren't here, that were injured or that were dead. They didn't care about women who were victims of sexual assault. They didn't care about the little girls that grew up. They're not releasing the Epstein files. They're disgusting. They didn't care about any of that, any of this morality. They only cared about themselves. And the sad reality, which is why I do this, is part of this country could not stomach a black man in the White House instead of picking their damn cotton. And that's a fact. So they went back to the plantation owner. And Lyndon Johnson said it best, and I'm going to paraphrase this country will vote for the most morally bankrupt human pile of human excrement while he's picking their wallet over the most qualified black woman. And the fact is that there's a lot of people in our lives, and it's hard for us to say it. Yeah, they're just not good people. They're shitty people. They are. You voted for a man who rapes women because you only give a damn about yourself. You're the reason that people don't go to church. It's not that they don't believe in God. It's that you're a shitty reflection of what Jesus stood for. And why do I talk like this? Because you're treating people like garbage. All you know how to do is tear people down just because of how they look. There's a reason that we haven't had a woman president in 249 years. Because too many people that voted for this convicted felon Orange Klan leader couldn't stomach a woman being president because they want to maintain the white patriarchy. And until we deal with that, it doesn't matter if a Democrat or Republican is in the White House. Because part of this country wants the outside of the White House to look like the inside. That's what we have to deal with as a country. That's the original sin that we refuse to deal with. And for you that still think that we're the best of the best of the best because you've been indoctrinated by nationalism, it's been great for one demographic, 21-year-old landowning white men. And if you don't like that, you can ship your ass back to England. Have yourself a white day.
Trump didn't create any of this. He preyed on something that already existed in clearly majority of the American people. And that should be disgusting enough for you to know that one out of every two or half person, because it was a little more than half of Americans that voted for him and exposed who they really are in their true colors, that were always there. He preyed on it because he's a salesperson. And the more you can incite emotion out of someone, the chances are they're going to rock with you. That's what you learn in sales. I'm a salesperson, and we learned that people are not going to remember what you said. They're going to remember how you made them feel. And that's literally was my motto as a salesperson, and it's fucking true. I would literally talk to clients about, their family members who died of cancer. Or, whatever was a bonding moment to incite emotion out of this client to get them to stick with me. That's basically what Trump did to the Americans. Trump only told Americans what they wanted to hear. Trump is not even the problem. The American people are the problem. The fact that this is what the American people wanted, a little more than half. So 1 out of every 2 people I walk by is a fucking racist or misogynist or a horrible human being in this country. So literally 1 out of 2 people are not good people in this country. If the American citizens weren't racist and misogynist, Trump would have never gotten this far. I want you to understand that. If the American people had a conscience and were intelligent and weren't narcissistic and psychopathic and sociopathic, Trump wouldn't have never even made it this far. Trump is literally simply just a reflection of the American people in this country. Not all of us, right? Because it's literally split. We are half and half polarized. Some of us believe in humans having rights and morality, and others only care about the taxes on their six-figure salaries being cut. So it's clear to see that a lot of us have a very, very large difference in morality. And a lot of us aren't racist and misogynist, right? But apparently a lot of Americans are. That's what this election shows us. Politicians can only be successful by going off of what the public wants to hear. Trump literally only told the public what they wanted to hear. He preyed on Americans' emotions and what they've been hiding this entire time in the era of color blindness and pretending this whole time that they didn't want to go back to Jim Crow, that they didn't want to go back to slavery. They've been pretending this whole time. This is really a wake-up call of who the fuck are our neighbors, right? Who we share this country with. Trump would have never gotten this far if American people, the majority of them, didn't want him to. This is the American people's fault. This isn't Trump's fault. Trump is clearly just a reflection of majority of the American citizens. And that is what's sad. That's what the most saddening, disheartening thing about this election is that learning that these people that you have to be polite and palatable to every day, you have to work with them, you have to see them every day, you don't know which one of them wants to take your rights. You don't know which one of them hates you. But we know now majority of them do. We know now majority of Americans hate us. It's unsettling to live in a country of people that hate you and chose to vote for a dictator that's taking our rights away, that imitates Hitler, all because they didn't want to vote for a woman. This says more about the American people than anything else. Because again, it's the American people who chose this.
I made a post 2 weeks ago saying that I was okay with segregation because we was already good before the white people came fucking with us. And of course, a walking white powder donut come in my fucking comment section saying that, oh, black people is not powerful. They think they strong, but they're not. God forbid if a white person come on here talking about black people like this. Bitch, God forbid if my people hung your people by they fucking strong ass necks. God forbid if we had you bitches in cages. God forbid if we had you bitches kneeling down calling us massa. God forbid if we had you bitches suppressed. God forbid, bitch. God forbid if we had no culture to steal. God forbid if we made you bitches put rice in y'all braids just to make sure y'all eat. God forbid if we smell like wet dog when it rain. God forbid we gentrify neighborhoods. God forbid we act like slavery didn't happen. God forbid that we're going extinct. God forbid that we actually benefit from the government, food stamps, SSI, anything dealing with government more than y'all. God forbid we have no rhythm, but we still try to gentrify music when we can't even find a fucking beat. God forbid if we rape, stole, and kill white people. God forbid if we whip them on their backs. God forbid if the police kill you because you got a hoodie on with a pack of Skittles. God forbid if we planted drugs in y'all neighborhoods. God forbid if we gave a fuck about y'all. God forbid, bitch.
Back in the 1980s, 1990s, and even into the early 2000s, a lot of people used to say that racism and white supremacy were problems that would eventually fade away. They would say, just give it time. Once the generations from World War I and World War II pass away, the younger people will be different, more tolerant, more open-minded. Many in older generations truly believed that racism was something tied to the past, something that would die out with age. They thought time alone would be enough to heal the deep wounds of America. But here we are, decades later, and more people are waking up and admitting the truth. Racism and white supremacy do not disappear with time. They are not tied to one generation of people who just happen to be old and stubborn. They are ideas, systems, and traditions that are taught, nurtured, and passed down deliberately. White supremacy is not accidental. It is cultural. It lives in textbooks, in family conversations, in the laws that govern this country, in the way people are policed, in the neighborhoods that are segregated, and in the opportunities denied to Black people. It has always been carried forward, just in different forms. We saw it during the Jim Crow era, when racism was written directly into law and enforced with violence. We saw it during the Obama era, when a Black president triggered a wave of backlash, conspiracy theories, and racial hatred that proved white supremacy was not hiding. It was waiting for a moment to reassert itself. And we see it in the present day, where the same attitudes continue to roll along under new disguises. Coded language in politics, attacks on voting rights, the rise of white nationalist groups, and open attempts to erase the history of slavery and civil rights struggles from schools. The truth is, white supremacy has never gone away. It has always adapted. Each generation of white America has found ways to pass the torch to the next, ensuring the structure stays in place. And so, for Black Americans, the fight has never ended. The struggle against racism is not just about confronting individuals with hateful ideas. It's about dismantling systems, calling out policies, and breaking generational cycles of oppression. What people are realizing now is that waiting for time to do the work is not enough. Time doesn't erase racism. Action does. And until America is willing to face white supremacy as a living, breathing force that passes from parent to child, from school to student, from law to society, then the cycle will continue. This is why so many are finally acknowledging white supremacy is not fading. It is rolling right along, generation after generation, because it was built to last. This is divine judgment. America is under judgment, not by man, but by God himself. The same God who judged Egypt, who judged Babylon, who judged Rome, is now weighing America in the balance and finding her wanting. America has sown destruction, and now it reaps decline. It has sown arrogance, and now it reaps humiliation. It has sown lies, and now it reaps truth, truth that cannot be hidden anymore. America is a land built on blood, on the sweat and suffering of the people it has enslaved, displaced, and silenced. But tell that truth today, and they call it divisive. They call it unpatriotic. They want you to believe that history is just a collection of dates and figures, stripped of the brutality, the deception, the theft. They tell you the Trail of Tears was just relocation, that the Colfax Massacre, Wilmington Coup and Massacre, Rosewood Massacre, Atlanta Race Massacre, Ocoee Massacre, Tulsa Massacre, Harlem Race Massacres of 1943 and 1964 was just riots, and that Jim Crow was merely a setback. What they refuse to admit is that America was never a nation of freedom. It was a nation of conquest, built on white supremacy, and it has never stopped being one. And that is why they are so desperate to erase the past. You see, history, real history, has power. It reveals the truth of this nation, of what was done and what is still being done. They call it critical race theory today, but it's just the truth, and that's why they fight so hard to bury it. From school boards banning books, to politicians scrubbing slavery, from textbooks, to social media platforms, silencing voices that dare speak honestly about America's past. White supremacy is culturally ingrained into every aspect of white society, in the home, school, religion, and politics. But tell me, what does it say about a people who fear history? It says they know their hands are bloody, and they are terrified that their children will ask them why. Because the truth would destroy their illusion of innocence. The same way it did when the world saw Black Wall Street burn. The same way it did when Jim Crow's chains were exposed for what they were. The same way it did when the Southern strategy was revealed as a blueprint for racial control, not democracy. But America has always had a strategy. Slave patrols became the police. Redlining became modern real estate steering. The plantation became the prison. And now, they want to act like none of it happened. They want to rewrite history to keep future generations obedient, ignorant, docile. And yet, what they don't understand is that you cannot erase pain. You cannot erase memory. You cannot erase the reality of people who have suffered and endured. This nation made laws to steal land from native people. The Homestead Act gave free land to whites while barring black freedmen Americans from ownership. The Immigration Act of 1924 made sure America remained a white country, closing its doors to those it deemed unfit. And when we, black freedmen Americans, dared to build wealth, dared to thrive, they sent mobs, they sent bombs, they sent laws disguised as justice to tear down black freedmen Americans' communities. And it wasn't enough for them to unalive us. They had to erase us. They built highways through our neighborhoods, turning communities into ghettos. They passed California Proposition 14 to uphold segregation. They used COINTELPRO to assassinate black leaders. They used the daughters of Confederates to put Confederate statues in our faces, not in 1865, but during the Civil Rights Movement, as a warning, as a message. And still, they want us to believe in their version of America, an America where slavery was a misunderstanding, where the Tuskegee experiment was a footnote, where mass incarceration is just an accident. No, sir. No, ma'am. White supremacy is in the bones of this country, in the schools, the churches, the homes, the politics. It is a disease, and they refuse to cure it. But there is something they should fear more than the truth being known. They should fear what happens when the next generation realizes they have been lied to. What happens when young people of all colors understand that history was stolen from them, that their textbooks were propaganda, that their teachers were ordered to deceive. A people who know they have been deceived do not trust, and a people who do not trust begin to question everything. That is what America fears most, not the past, but the reckoning it demands. And that reckoning is coming. No matter how many books they ban, no matter how many voices they silence, no matter how many lies they tell, truth is like a flame. It spreads. And once it touches the people, it cannot be extinguished. The question is not whether America will reckon with its past. The question is whether America will survive what it has done. Tell me what you think about this topic. Hope you find the information in this video informative. Feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. Thanks for watching.